Long ago, there was a broad, rich valley carved out of bedrock by the advance and retreat of massive glaciers over eons of time. This was the ancestral home of our people, the Huna Łingít. We called this place Shuyi, land at the end of the glacial silt. For generations, our clans thrived on the rich abundance of the sea and the land. The streams ran wild with plentiful salmon. The dense forests were full of life until the ice came again. Our way of life, Hakustiyi, is directed by traditions that have guided us since time immemorial. Our ancestors bear witness to our stories told in this tribal house. The story of Castine is the history of our people and Glacier Bay. Spit Plain, the big glacier, lay up at the head of our valley home, way beyond our village. Until one day, a young Tlingit woman, Castine, broke a taboo and called to the glacier. It responded by surging forward, crushing everything in its path. Our ancestors knew no time could be wasted. Everyone had to leave or perish. Our people packed canoes with all they could and fled to the south, escaping the ice. Somebody had to stay behind to appease the glacier and stop its advance. The woman, Castine, chose to stay and was buried with the village. The glacier kept advancing until it reached a large bay of water where it finally stopped. Our people escaped across the bay to the place we now live, called Huna, which means in the lee of the north wind. It would be a long, long time before the ice released its frozen grip on our homeland.
The ice covering the once verdant valley locked it in a deep freeze that lasted over 100 years. Winters were colder and longer. Life was hard for those left behind. When the English explorer, Captain George Vancouver, sailed into what he named Icy Strait in 1794, he commented,
"This small bay is choked by a sheet of ice as far as my eye can see."
He had no idea this tremendous sheet of ice had overrun the Tlingit village, nor did he know it would soon begin a rapid retreat. Yet it did begin to retreat, the face of the glacier moving back at an estimated rate of 20 to 30 feet a day. Ocean water flowed into the void that was left by the ice, restoring a remembered landscape. The Tlingit named this emerging bay Sit Iti Gi'i, meaning bay in place of the glacier. By the time pioneering naturalist John Muir arrived in the area in 1879, the glacier had retreated 48 miles, revealing new waterways and barren rock. Muir came to this bay to understand how glaciers shaped the land. He could not have come to a better place. During his 4 visits over 2 decades, Muir witnessed much change.
I have noticed with the changes in Glacier Bay, out of all the cold darkness and glacial crushing and grinding, comes this warm, abounding beauty and life to teach us that what we, in our faithless ignorance and fear, call destruction is creation, finer and finer.
Many scientists followed in Muir's footsteps, drawn to Glacier Bay by the compressed timeline of creation, carved out of bare rock by forces that boggle the mind. The substantial and rapid changes that have occurred over the past 250 years make Glacier Bay an extraordinary place for scientific study, a unique living laboratory. Given the passing of time and the ice in bold retreat, mosses, lichens, and small flowering plants begin to break down the rock, making way for shrubs and eventually trees. Plants force their way into this newly revealed landscape, followed by insects, birds, and mammals, from porcupines to moose and apex predators like brown bears and wolves. This process is known as biological succession. Visionary plant ecologist William Cooper was attracted to Glacier Bay through his study of plants. He recognized Glacier Bay as a valuable scientific resource and helped in the process to make the area a national park.
In 1916, I made my first visit to Glacier Bay, finding there a region rich in opportunities for research bearing upon the fundamental problems of plant succession.
In some ways, you can sort of travel back in time and look at what the landscape appeared to be at various times since the glaciers exposed the land. That process of recovery and recolonization is succession. In the face of disturbance, succession will happen. Life will return on its own terms. And, the Earth is going to be fine.
Today, scientists still hike, boat, and paddle through Glacier Bay, tracking answers to questions that can unlock the many mysteries of the bay.
It's a really interesting story where, wolves colonized Glacier Bay after the ice retreated, and now they are adapting to this intertidal environment where it seems like most of their food is coming from the ocean, not the land. Instead of hunters, they're more like gatherers, just cruising the intertidal zone and pouncing on fish in the tide pools and eating shellfish, and once in a while scoring a sea otter. It's just really cool to see this place change and the animals change with it.
Animals in Glacier Bay have to be adaptable to survive in a landscape that is changing so fast. There is no better example than the glacial environments.
I study the weather and climate, and also then the glaciers themselves and the interactions between the climate and glaciers, for example. Another reason scientifically why we're interested in weather is because over longer timescales, we can understand how the system is shifting with global climate change. In the present climate, the glaciers are out of balance. So most glaciers around the world are losing ice relative to what they would have had 50 years ago, for example. And as a result, they get smaller. So they're losing volume, but they're also losing area. And here in Glacier Bay, that pattern holds true as well. So most of the glaciers, the vast majority of glaciers in Glacier Bay are retreating.
Here, major changes can occur hourly. These changes can have effects on the local wildlife. Harbor seals depend on icebergs for a place to birth their young away from predators like killer whales. But that is not the whole story.
We used to have many tidewater glaciers in Glacier Bay. Now we only have 5 that are calving ice into the ocean. Seals in Glacier Bay use the ice that's calved from tidewater glaciers for pupping and for resting. I've been studying harbor seals in Glacier Bay since 1996. Since that time, harbor seal populations in Glacier Bay have declined dramatically, from over 5,000 seals in the early to mid-1990s to just over 2,000 seals in 2017.
The dwindling population of seals is tied directly to the loss of sea ice they use for berthing. With the glaciers in rapid retreat due to the warming climate, the harbor seal populations become a climate change indicator. Glacier Bay is no stranger to change. Change does not hesitate here as it does in many environments. Rather, it charges ahead with impatience. Climate change will be no different. Scientists can see its effects in real time, making Glacier Bay a bellwether for changes affecting our whole planet. Just as air temperatures are increasing, so are temperatures in the ocean, causing marine heat waves. The warmer water can impact small schooling fish, causing their numbers to decline. These fish are the primary food source for the humpback whales that come to the bay every year from Hawaii to feed. When there is not enough food, the whales and their calves may starve.
When I started my work here, the whales were actually at a pretty low point in their population, and over most of my career, the whales have been increasing. However, that came to a pretty abrupt stop in 2014 when there was a large marine heat wave occurring in the northeast Pacific. A couple of things that struck me about the marine heat wave. One was how sudden the effects were. We had this population of whales that was doing really great, and all of a sudden it was like they hit a brick wall. The reproductive rate is very low and very sobering to watch.
Whales and many other animals and plants are being affected by the rising temperatures on our planet. The rising carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, causing the warming climate, coupled with the increasing freshwater runoff from melting glaciers, could change the bay as we know it. This super cold fresh water flowing into the bay is capable of dissolving higher concentrations of carbon dioxide from the air, making the water more acidic. Many creatures that form the base of the food web need calcium carbonate from the ocean to create structural skeletons and protective shells. The acidic seawater makes building and maintaining shells difficult, thus reducing these creatures' ability to survive. Loss of creatures in the food web will have far-reaching effects. Environmental changes have been a way of life in Glacier Bay for hundreds of years, but the changes we see today could well be symptomatic of global changes. Glacier Bay's richness does not exist in isolation. Its wildness is connected to the rest of the world. The wildlands of this park extend from the coastal beaches to the tops of the mountains. They join the boundaries of two Canadian parks, Tashinshini-Alsac Park and the Kluane National Park and Reserve. Together with the adjacent Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve, they provide one of the largest, uninterrupted expanses of wilderness in the world.
When I'm out there in the wilderness, makes me feel a deep connection to this place and a deep desire to maintain wildness in the world.
Travel into these areas is challenging. There are no roads, no trails, no runways, no easy access. Everything needed for survival has to be carried with you. Here, there is a solitude that challenges the minds and the bodies of the few who dare to take it on.
When a tourist comes in to Glacier Bay, they marvel at the sight of the whales, and they marvel at the snow-capped mountains. I always say, when a person comes in, they're coming into wilderness. When we go in there, it's all our spiritual family. It's like going into a community. We see all these different spirits there.
The experience of being in a remote, wild place can bring sharp focus to the present moment. It can be spiritual and life-altering. The survival of this wilderness depends on us treating our planet with respect. These days, it is rare to get beyond the reach of human-made sounds. In this massive wilderness, we can hear the voices of our ancient planet. Expeditions into these remote areas requires knowledge, skills, and careful planning. The rewards for the effort can be meaningful beyond measure.
We've created so many buffers between ourselves and the natural world that I don't think a lot of people even recognize what the natural world is anymore. And spending a little time in the wilderness helps people to rediscover that. And I think it's important for people to discover and appreciate that, you know, because that's the beginning of preservation right there. When somebody truly appreciates it, they want to keep it, they want to save it and maintain it.
With the roughly 1,200 miles of shoreline in the bay and along the outer coast, one could spend a lifetime exploring the inlets and islands and shoreline in this awe-inspiring place. The outer coast of the park is a place where the major weather systems from the Gulf of Alaska clash with a rugged shoreline. The only way to visit these areas is by boat or bush plane. With very few safe harbors and even fewer beaches suitable for landing, access is very challenging. One of the few exceptions is Lituya Bay. Even though it is a rare protected anchorage, it too can be unforgiving. This bay is the site of numerous past tsunamis due to its proximity to a major earthquake fault. In years past, Tlingit villages were destroyed by tsunamis. And then, in 1958, a local 7.8 earthquake caused 90 million tons of rock to landslide into the bay. It created one of the largest tsunamis ever recorded, washing up the mountainside to 1,700 feet. It stripped the shoreline of all its vegetation. These events are painful reminders of the geological instability of the area as the forces of change reshape these landscapes daily. Wilderness can be experienced in many ways. Whether you hike, kayak, or observe the land slipping by from the deck of a ship, time spent with a wild landscape can have a lasting effect.
I worked in big cities, and the idea that there still is this here on the planet, makes you feel pretty good.
Summer is the season when people come to see Glacier Bay. For about 6 months of the year, it is an easy place to be. But come fall, things begin to change. As the storms begin to roll in from the Arctic, salmon are finishing their spawn to produce the next generation. Bears are busy packing on the pounds to make it through winter. The geese have headed south. The puffins head out to sea, and everyone else starts preparing for winter. Days get shorter. In time, snow begins to fall. A deep chill settles over the land and waters. As the twilight of winter settles over the land and the sea, we know that in spring, change will come again to Glacier Bay, as it always does. Since time immemorial, the Tlingit have seen this place go through many changes. Each time they have adjusted and survived. From their resilience, we can find wisdom and inspiration about survival in a changing world. What we know is this: Glacier Bay's story, a story of change and adaptation, will continue. Whirling and flowing, natural and unfettered as it always has. Forces seen and unseen will continue their rhythmic motion, chasing everything in endless song out of one beautiful form into another.